when you go through your own developmental journey and you realize who you are and you start healing your own trauma and you start to look at your family system in a different way. You start to understand maybe those things that happened to me, they didn't have to happen. I could have been raised differently. And while you cannot go back and change the past, you can change the future. When you start waking up in your own life and realizing the harm that was done to you through narcissistic family systems, the unfairness, the abuse, maybe it was emotional, psychological, physical, the manipulation, when you really start healing yourself, going within, processing your experiences, looking at them from an objective angle, asking yourself, is this something that I feel was fair to me? Is this something that I want to allow to happen to me? Are there boundaries that I need to set up? When you really start examining your life from an objective view and trying to heal those trauma wounds, it's going to be threatening to the powers that control your life because they are not going to want you to see them in a different way. They worked very hard at building their kingdom and their power, and they don't want anybody messing with that. And so you might be considered a threat when you start really healing yourself and awakening. But when you're living from inside of a narcissistic family system, it's very hard to do that because the people around you don't want you to do that. They're uncomfortable by it. Some people will be interested. They'll pay attention from the sidelines, but mostly they're interested in watching the behind the scenes show of what's being said behind your back while you're planning your exit. It's important to have realistic expectations about what is possible. The game that narcissists play with their children is they generally select one child to look up to and to make all the other children feel less than. This can create insecurity in the other children. Let's just say you have a sibling who you grew up with side by side and you were both traumatized, but one was rewarded and looked up to than the other. This will create a competitive role for the one that got diminished. They will want to compete with the one who got looked up to by the narcissist, the one that the narcissist validated so much in order to devalue the other siblings. One or more of them may start competing for a greater sense of power and trying to diminish the child that's being looked up to. And this can cause a lot of damage because they're not the ones creating this false image that they're so perfect. It's the narcissist putting that image on the child only to hurt and damage the relationships between the siblings. But because the other sibling doesn't understand that this is a game the narcissist is playing in order to damage the children's ability to bond and trust, then it breaks apart the bond between siblings. And there becomes this silent competition and envy that can emerge from the child who's been devalued. Now the child who's been overvalued will be hated and set up for humiliation and abuse by the devalued child. When you are the child who's been overvalued, if you look at what the narcissist is doing to that child, they're setting that child up for a lifetime of heartbreak because that child will no longer have siblings intact that want to be connected to them intimately and want to grow their life with them. So you end up having a broken family dynamic because the narcissist is able to play a game with their mind and manipulate each of them so that none of them feels validated by their siblings, but rather look to the narcissist to be validated. You may enter a period where you decide that being a part of this family system is unhealthy for you, and you're not going to be able to have the life that is fair to you, that will allow you to be nurtured and to grow and to have a healthy outcome in your life. So leaving that narcissistic family dynamic becomes imperative because you don't want to play those games and allow the narcissist to damage you for the rest of your life. Damage all the relationships, any other children that you may have coming into the relationship. Because if a person is willing to do this to their own children, they're not going to stop. They would continue damaging the grandchildren, the partners you may have, the children may marry. No one is safe around a narcissist who is willing to devalue people and play games with them and hurt them and break their bonds in such a way. Now, there's something you should know. If you do decide to leave your narcissistic family dynamic, I'm just going to be honest with you. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to give up some things that feel very unfair. When you do leave a situation like this, you leave with nothing. You leave with no attachments to anyone in that system, because everyone in that system is still going to be under the manipulative control of that narcissist. And anything you do or say about the family system or that's not in compliance with it, once you leave, will work against you. Those people who are still in company with the narcissist will want the narcissist's approval. They'll do anything it takes to get it. The loss can be catastrophic for those of us who leave a narcissistic family system. You might have to leave your nieces and your nephews behind. You may never get to know them or have any relationships with them, because you know that their parent will not be honest about why you've had to leave that system. They are still upholding the lie of the trauma. They are still upholding this secret, this mask. It's extremely painful. So if you've left the family, then you're out forever. And it's not going to be a situation where they are going to be fair to you. You're still the person who is seen as an enemy because you haven't stuck with the dysfunctional system, and you're still not able to be trusted for that reason. Now they can devalue all they want. They can own the story. They can make it out like you're crazy. They can make it out like you were the dysfunctional one. And now everybody in that system gets to pretend that there's no dysfunction at all. The person who left was the dysfunctional one. And so it's quite difficult to survive the narcissist family system, but it is definitely important to leave the system, no matter how difficult it is.